of La Penta, it's WICR.
Hello, Iona College. Welcome back to the Sports Vault. I'm your host with the most, Jersey Joe, coming on for another Friday appearance. There was just too many things to get to on the slate. Had to come on, especially with this one thing. Last night after the Colts game, I had a kind of a thought, and I really wanted to come on the air and talk about it. And I tweeted out last night, I see parallels between this young Andrew Luck in his Colts and the old LeBron James in his Colts. And the one word I used to kind of describe that was starstruck. I think when you look at Andrew Luck right now, he's just doing things that are just special. People weren't lying. When this kid came out of Stanford, this is a once-in-a-generational type of talent. This is one of those guys where when it's all said and done, we're going to be looking back at his career and saying, this guy was one of the best, one of the greatest of all time. You look at what he has to work with his Colts team. I think sometimes we don't really appreciate how bad the Colts would be if it wasn't for Andrew Luck. You look at the offensive side of the ball. What does he have to work with? Your best receivers are T.Y. Hilton. Reggie Wayne, I love him. He's been great, but he's past his prime. You don't have a lot of offensive talent on that team. Without Robert Mathis this year, you have nothing on the defensive side of the ball. Can't get a pass rush. You've okay guys like Vontae Davis, but overall, this is a roster that is very devoid of talent. And now I'm going back to the LeBron James parallel comparison. I think when you look back at LeBron, his first stint with the Cavaliers, I think he was so good, and the Cavs were so good because of him, that the ownership kind of thought they could get by just with his sheer talent alone. What was the biggest problem I've had with the Cavs in the past? They just never surrounded LeBron with the talent he needed. His best players were Daniel Gibson, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Anderson Varejao. Embarrassing. You've got to give the guy help. That's why LeBron couldn't get past the Spurs. He took that Cavs team in 2007 as far as any human being could possibly take a team. That is the worst roster in NBA history to make it to an NBA Finals. It was literally LeBron James, and that was it. There was no other player of note on that team. It was really just a marvel at how good LeBron is that he could even take a team that far. And I think sometimes now with the Colts, with Andrew Luck, and back in the day with the Cavs with LeBron James, they were so starstruck at these guys and how good they were that it kind of fooled them that this is how good they are. We don't have to do as much now. And the Colts really, I don't think they've done a very good job at surrounding Luck with the talent he needs right now. Now, he's still very, very young in his career. This is his third season. There's still a lot of room for improvement on the Colts team. But the time is now. It's not a couple years from now. I don't want to start to hear, Andrew Luck can't get past this point in the playoffs. Because if it is, if you took Andrew Luck and you put him if you gave him that Bengals roster right now, he would make deep runs into the playoffs every year. Because you look at some of those weapons, man, unbelievable. He just doesn't have a ton of talent. But that was my main thought. I am obviously a huge Andrew Luck fan, and I went through it with LeBron James, and that's why when he originally left for Miami, I wasn't upset about it, because I understand. These guys are all about winning. You look at LeBron, you look at Andrew Luck, they have that special mindset where there's only one thing that matters to them, and that's being the best, getting better every single week, every single year, always doing whatever it takes to win. And it's just a marvel to watch these guys. They're special talents that only come around every once in a while. And I see that parallel between the teams not surrounding them with the talent they need. So that's my thought there, and hopefully that will be corrected. But right now, Andrew Luck, just the way he's playing. Last night winning the game 33-28. At halftime they were up. They had scored 24 points in the first quarter. Unbelievable. It got close at the end, a couple turnovers, but overall the Colts were able to pull away with the win, and it was finally a competitive Thursday night game, which we really haven't seen so far. But that is going to do for that part. Now, moving along to more football. It's a very heavily football show right now. We have Michael Vick's comments the other day, and I really wanted to address them because I think the comments and the lashback of this is such a reflection of the Jets, and when I hear this, I just think I've liked Rex in the past, but you know what? The way things are going right now, I think they're going to have to go in a different direction. I really do. You had Michael Vick admitting he was unprepared for Week 5 for Week 5 when he got put in the Chargers game. It was a blowout. They couldn't get anything going with Geno. The Chargers were up huge, so they put Michael Vick in, and he performed horribly, possibly even worse than Geno Smith did, and he said his excuse was he was unprepared. Now, we'll address that before we get to Rex's response to that, but that is just the epitome of just inexcusable. You are a backup quarterback. It doesn't matter if you're the starter, if you're the backup, you're the third string. It's your job, your responsibility to be prepared week by week as if you're going to be the starter. It does, and Michael Vick should know with the way things are going with that offense, there's a very good possibility that he will be starting, that he'll get a chance to play, and just the fact that you weren't prepared and you admit that you weren't prepared, that is embarrassing. If I was a head coach and my player told me that he was unprepared, I would cut him on the spot. I would either cut him if I had the ability to, or I wouldn't even acknowledge him, wouldn't play him the rest of the year. It's embarrassing as a professional to not be prepared. I mean, there's no excuse. There is not one excuse to say that you weren't prepared to come into the game when that's your job. You have the entire week, the whole week, your only job is prepare for the team. Watch the film, participate in the practices. You should be doing everything human possible. There's a reason why Andrew Luck, we'll go back to him, is so good. It's because what is the number one thing? He is always prepared. The one thing I'll never forget about Peyton Manning is in the Book of Manning, it was a documentary the SEC Network made, maybe I think it was last year, on the Manning family, and the one line out of that really resonated with me was Peyton Manning is so afraid of being unprepared that he over-prepares. Now, I mean, what does that tell you about a guy like Peyton Manning? I mean, we all know the legendary work ethics of the Tom Bradys, the Peyton Mannings. There's a reason why those guys are so good, especially for Brady, because I think if you look at sheer talent alone in terms of athleticism, Manning and Brady don't stand out from the crowd. I mean, Andrew Luck is one of those special ones where he's got the athleticism to go along with that work ethic, which just puts him in a different level. But Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, I've never thought their athleticism is what set them apart. I mean, it is just hard grinding, dedication to your craft, and it is just so admirable. And that line, I mean, Peyton Manning is so afraid of being unprepared that he over-prepares. That's a thing that always, and that's what makes you a good quarterback. And Michael Vick, quite frankly, it's embarrassing. And Rex, I mean, made it even worse. I mean, he pretty much applauded it. His response to it was, I mean, let me just get it right here. It took guts. He said, Michael Vick's response, which drew national criticism, and that this is Rex saying it took guts, and it was exactly what I wanted. I wanted guys to take a stand and admit that, you know what, I can do more. Ryan said, I think that what Mike is doing, he knows what's going to be said about him, yet he chose to take that stand. I mean, just, you're pretty much advocating, giving him an excuse to kind of this behavior, and it's just a reflection of the head coach partially, I think. I mean, if you had a hard-nosed head coach in there, you'd be terrified if you said you weren't prepared. I mean, it's just a reflection of the Jets coaching staff, of the Jets culture right now, and it is a mess, and it's going to be an ugly season right now. And either way, regardless of if what happens with Geno or what happens with Michael Vick, things are just aren't working right now. They're going to have to go in a different direction. I mean, that quote right there is just inexcusable. This is your guy. He admits he's unprepared when you're going to need him, when he's a professional being paid millions of dollars to do this job. There's no excuse. I mean, I wish I could try to sit here and come up with maybe a counter argument to this, but there is no counter argument. You need to be prepared every single week. Rex Ryan did not do a good job at handling this situation, and that's the end of the story there. Let's move on, though, to the next thing, going into the college football strata. Now, Todd Gurley, obviously, for the Georgia Bulldogs, tremendous running back. I mean, the first couple games this year, he's just been sensational playing. I think he's really him and Amir Abdullah are probably the only two running backs I would put into the Heisman conversation right now. They've just had very, very good years. But obviously now Todd Gurley is going to be out for the rest of the year. And that right there is just very, very just disappointing, because you watch this kid play. He's so special. He's a really fun guy to watch. But you know what? It's the NCAA rules, and there's still a lot of things coming out on that front. But the one thing that I'm thinking of here is, I mean, you look at the SEC standings, and it's kind of weird. You have the SEC East and the SEC West. The SEC West is stacked right now. You have Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, and Arkansas. I mean, you have three of those teams right there are 5-0. Auburn, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State all 5-0. You have Texas A&M at 5-1 and Alabama at 4-1, and then LSU at 4-2. But then you go to the SEC East, and it's a very different picture. I mean, you have Missouri, Georgia, and Florida. Missouri and Georgia are both 4-1. Florida at 3-1, and Kentucky at 4-1. Now, obviously, those are still very good records, but the difference between these teams is just very different. I mean, the SEC West is clearly the better half of this division here, and with Gurley out, it makes it very interesting because I really don't see a front runner in the SEC East right now. I don't like Missouri. Missouri had a game where they lost to Indiana, which is just unbelievably inexcusable to lose that game. Georgia without Todd Gurley is very exposed. I mean, I like Booker Mason. I think he's okay, but his effectiveness really gets brought out by Todd Gurley running the ball well. So not having Todd Gurley is really going to hurt Georgia. Florida, I just can't. I mean, Jeff Driscoll was just a disaster. Their backup quarterback, who played well when he came in, now he's got legal issues at the forefront, which makes things bad there. So I don't trust Florida on offense. Kentucky, I still don't trust. I think they're still an emerging program. South Carolina is the weird one. I mean, they're the team you would really think would just, I mean, they're getting every single advantage and opportunity to take the SEC East. I mean, they've already got three losses, but still, you've got there. I still am not ready to give up on South Carolina. I still like Dylan Thompson as a passer. Not the best mobility, but I still like him as a passer there. And I don't know. I think South Carolina's still got a chance here. It's really anyone's game, the SEC East, and it's so different. Regardless of what happens in the East, though, somebody from the West is going to win the SEC championship. It's either going to be Auburn. I don't think it will be Mississippi State or Ole Miss. I think they're going to find losses along the way. I think everybody will eventually. It's just too tough there. But I think it's probably going to be Auburn or Alabama coming out of the SEC and winning the championship. It's just the East is just very weak in regards to the West. But the final story to get to is Adrian Peterson yesterday, and man, you think back, I mean, when this guy came out of Oklahoma, I remember the excitement coming around him. I mean, he was one of my favorite running backs for a while. I'm just watching him play, his toughness, really just helping the Vikings for a while there. He was really all they had. Tavares Jackson was their quarterback there, and I mean, he was just a lot of fun to watch his first couple years, but talk about a fall from grace. I mean, this guy has just become just such an embarrassment. It's not even funny. I mean, you had the child abuse allegations, which was very, very serious. At that point, I was just done with Adrian Peterson as it was. But then to have this other stuff come out, and now he's they actually want to order his arrest for his marijuana use admission. I mean, he was going to take a drug test as part of this trial process, and he told them that he had recently used marijuana, so obviously his drug test was going to come up positive. And I mean, that is just, I mean, have some self-awareness. You're going through just massively important things that are, I mean, this is your job, your life, your livelihood on the line here, and you go out and you're using drugs at an important time like this. I mean, it's embarrassing. Have some self-awareness. I'm done with Adrian Peterson at this point. I really am. This guy is just a laughing stock. I mean, first you're going through this stuff, and now you're using drugs when you're going through a trial. And I mean, it's probably smart to think to maybe stay out of trouble and not do stupid things in the middle of this really intense situation. And you go and do this. I mean, Adrian Peterson's a fool. He's an idiot. I mean, you could use any words you want to put here, but it's just lacking self-awareness, lacking intelligence in any regard there. And look, I don't care if he ever plays in the league again. He will, because in the NFL today, I mean, as long as you can still play, somebody's going to give you a chance. But you know what? The organizations that still hold themselves to some regard will not ever let this guy play in their team again, and I sure know that I wouldn't. But Adrian Peterson just from bad to worse now, and I hope he gets arrested, because it just takes such low regard and such low self-importance. I mean, to go through and use drugs in a situation like this. I mean, I'm struggling to kind of comprehend how stupid somebody could be, but Adrian Peterson, I guess, takes it to a different level and always shows you that no matter how dumb you think somebody can be, they could be even dumber. So that is going to wrap it up for this Friday edition. As I went on the air yesterday, thankfully got off to a good start with a Thursday night win. It's always good to get that first Thursday night game, get the win, because it really sets you up for a lot of success in the weekend. So I'm very happy we could get that win with the Colts last night. Big college football games. No soccer this weekend, international break, but there will be some fun games there as well. But overall, it's going to be another great sports weekend. We got baseball in the forefront tonight. I said it on Monday on the sports wall. I think we're destined for orange and black October. I think it's going to be O's and Giants. Should be a lot of fun, though. I'm pulling for my man Buck Showalter. I've been on the Orioles all year, so I'm really hoping they can get it. But it's going to be a fun series. Two young teams. The Giants-Cardinals, not as excited for. I mean, I've seen that story so many times already. But the Orioles and the Royals, I'm going to be very excited for. Should be a lot of fun. But everyone, thank you for tuning in, and everyone have a great weekend.